Hi guys, welcome back to Cool Movie Ratings. Today we're doing the final Rocky video for right now, or Rocky review related, because today we are finishing off the entire review series with ranking all the movies, all 9 movies. I'm going to rank them in this video, and I'm going to say I did a small ranking back in 2020, and it has changed a lot. I think that a lot of the places have gone back and forth. I haven't even looked at that list as of filming, and I think that this list is going to be very different, but let's get right into it. So, at number 9, no shocker, is going to be Rocky 5, but I did not hate this movie, and I will never anymore. I never did hate it. I just thought it was very forgettable, and I believe it was last place on my last list. The only reason why this is last is because it's honestly basically I think like the 3 movies, I just all kind of find them the same as like amount of enjoyment. But Rocky 5, I really did enjoy it because it feels a lot like the first one, as John G. Allison, the first movie's director, returns for this one. And I really like Sage Sloan. I think he does an amazing job in this movie. May he rest in peace. Because this was the only movie where he portrayed Rocky's son, and he was absolutely great in it. And I just think Rocky 5 is a misunderstood movie that over time I hope will get more fans, because I actually really enjoyed it. If your least favorite in a franchise is an 8 out of 10, you're doing really good. So Rocky is definitely my top 3 favorite franchises of all time. But Rocky 5, I think Sylvester Stallone gives an amazing performance. I think Burt Young gives an amazing performance as Paulie, and then I think that Adrian is absolutely amazing in this movie. She's back to being one of the main characters, and I absolutely loved revisiting this movie because it was basically like watching it for the first time. And I wouldn't say I loved it, but I think that it was a pretty good movie, and it's way overhated, but it is still number 9 in my Rocky reviews. Coming at number 8, not much far behind it, Rocky Balboa. I think this one slightly moved down because I find this one just not as interesting as some of the other Rocky movies, and I wasn't really bored, but this is definitely one that ranks lower with people. But I noticed a lot of people who are Rocky fans in the 80s, they put this one pretty high up because I think it's a great follow-up, like, all these years later. I didn't have that, obviously, because I watched them all for the first time in, like, 2019, rewatched them now in 2023, so I just went from Rocky 5 to Rocky 6, but, it's still a great movie. Like I said, it's like an 8.5 movie, but I don't find it to be as great as any of the others. And basically Rocky 5 and this one are tied for me because I still think they're equally enjoyable. I could still watch them. I still will watch them. I'm probably going to rewatch them in maybe a year or two-ish. But just think that they don't have maybe the most interesting parts in it. And this is the first one that introduces a death of a main character, which really becomes prominent in the next few movies, obviously. But Adrian dies in Rocky Balboa, and basically just Rocky and Paulie in this one. And I think that there should have been some more characters from the first movie. I know they tried to bring in that little girl from the first movie. I can't remember her name. It's been like a few days since I watched Rocky Balboa. But they bring in the girl from that Rocky like helps in the Marie. Marie is her name, Little Marie. And it's so weird that they went there to like as one of the main characters. They brought a girl in who was in like 30 seconds of the first Rocky movie. She ends up being like a main character. That was a little bit weird, but in this one we got Milo Ventimiglia. I don't know how to say his last name, but he plays Rocky's son in this. He takes over Sage Sloan. I think Sage Sloan was still alive at this time, but he just wasn't into acting. I could be wrong, but I think that Marlo does such a great job playing his son, and I was glad that we got to see him return in a little bit of Creed 2. And I think that Rocky Balboa is a perfect way to end the Rocky franchise. Honestly, this is like the last real Rocky movie, obviously, even though Rocky would appear in Creed 1 and 2. This is the last one, and I think that it does a really good job ending the Rocky series, kind of where it started, because it continues with the Rocky 5 vibe of being more grimy, and he's not as rich anymore, and I kind of like that, because that's like some of the best parts of Rocky. But yeah, Rocky Balboa is not a bad movie at all, but it comes in at my number 8. Coming at number 7, this is going to be a shocker to some people. Creed from 2015, the first Creed. I've always thought that this one was superior to Creed 2. And I just think that it feels a lot like a Rocky copy, and this is one that people usually put in their top two, and weirdly, like, critics have this one above Rocky, which there's no way. But this film is still not bad. I think that it's great because you get introduced to Adonis Creed, who, especially with Rocky's or Creed's 2 and 3, becomes one of the best characters in this series, second best behind Rocky. And I think that this movie's great because you get to have some of the aspects I completely forgot about, where Adonis wants to be his own person, not be associated with his dad, but also he can't really escape it because he's Adonis Creed, or he's Apollo Creed's son. So that's really, he just wants to live up, everyone wants him to live up to his dad's legacy, and that kind of like scares him a little bit. And I think that this one's great. I think that this is the only Creed movie that has, well, out of the two that Rocky's in, that Rocky really feels like he has a purpose in this one, and he's great in it. And Sylvester Stallone, he got nominated for an Oscar for this one, which, getting nominated for an Oscar over like Rocky's 2, 3, well, 2 and 3 especially, um, like, he gets nominated for this one, I found a little bit weird. He does just as great, but thought it was weird that they nominate him for this, but not Rocky's 2 or 3. But I still think that Sylvester Stallone gives an absolutely amazing performance. There's not one movie in this series that he gives a bad performance in. And I believe the director's name is Ryan Coogler. He's big into the MCU, like he does all the Black Panther movies, which I've never seen. At some point in my life, I'll watch them. But I think him and Michael B. Jordan are a great team because I think that he was in Black Panther. I actually have seen the first Black Panther. It was just right when it came out, and I forget everything about it. But I remember Michael B. Jordan. I hadn't even seen Creed yet, but I thought he was great in that. And Michael B. Jordan, I'll talk about him very shortly, about how amazing he is. But in this movie, he doesn't instantly become amazing to me. I think he's great in this movie, but he's not like Sylvester Stallone, where he just immediately is like one of the greatest characters or actors just from their first movie. But Creed 2015 is a great movie. You get introduced to Bianca and all the characters that will make the next few Creed movies great. The villain is completely forgettable. I can't even remember his name. And I just think Creed 2015 is a great movie to introduce new generations to Rocky. So Creed 2015 is my number 7. My number 6 is Creed 2. Not much far behind, but or not much farther behind. And I think that Creed 2 is a good movie because you get the legacy character that is one of the greatest legacy characters in the Rocky movies. You get Ivan Drago back, and I absolutely loved him in Rocky 4. He's probably a top 2 villain, honestly. He's probably my second favorite villain in this whole series, and really the first one isn't a villain. I'll just say it now, Apollo Creed is my favorite villain. He's not really a villain, but he's kind of a villain in the first two. But Ivan Drago's a close number 2 for me. And I really like Dolph Lundgren. I think he's great, and you get to see in this movie him and his son. And I still think it's kind of weird that after his wife played him in Rocky 4, basically, because she was the one that was really managing him and made him box, and basically she's doing it again, but this time it's by Ivan's choices because he wants to kind of like win her back, kind of. That's what the movie makes you think. But this one you get Victor Drago as the villain, who's great. He's great in Rocky or Creed 3. Keep saying Rocky instead of Creed. But speaking of Rocky, this is like one of the major issues that I had with this movie. I kind of feel like Rocky's kind of pointless in this movie because he's not there for the first fight, and Creed wins, but he kind of loses basically, and that's because the audience is supposed to think it's because Rocky's not there. Then when he comes back, it's kind of weird because that's like his only purpose. He's just kind of there. I feel like he doesn't really train Apollo or Adonis, and yeah, so that's like the only gripe I have with this movie, but I still think it's amazing, and an 8.5 out of 10 for me. And this one was directed by a different guy, I think Steve Caple Jr. I don't really know what he's done, but Michael B. Jordan continues, and this is where, to me, the Adonis Creed starts to become one of the best characters in the series, and especially in Creed 3. So yeah, I thought Creed 2 was a great sequel and better than the first one, so Creed 2 comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is shockingly Creed 3. The one without Rocky ends up being one of my favorite movies in the whole series. And this is like a 9.5 or possibly 10 out of 10 for me. From this point on, these are films that I really don't have issues with going up, because the next 5 are just 5 of my, or the next, I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite movies ever, but especially the next 4 are 4 of my favorite movies ever. But I absolutely loved Creed 3. And this is the movie where Michael B. Jordan becomes one of the best actors, possibly directors for me, because I think that his performance in this movie is just much better in general than that it is in the first two. He really improves. And I was worried that they couldn't do this without Rocky, but I'm kind of glad, because now that I've rewatched Creed 2, I realized Rocky didn't really have much of a purpose. His only purpose that I think was kind of good was reconnecting with his son. And now that he's done that, he doesn't really have any other purpose. And it's shocking to say it, but I think they made a good decision on where they went without Sylvester Stallone. I still think he should be in it. I still think he should have some like side plots, kind of like in Creed 2, but maybe have a little bit more purpose, honestly. But I absolutely loved Creed 3, and I think this might benefit and be higher because I saw this one in the theater. This is the only Rocky movie I've ever seen in the theater. Right when Creed 2 came to streaming, I watched all the series. So this was the first Rocky/Creed movie that I ever saw in the theater, and it's just a way better experience to see anything in a theater. So if you ever have that debate, definitely just go and see it in the theater because it's way better. But Creed 3 is super great, and I will keep enjoying it, I feel like, as I rewatch it. And in this one, Bianca, she's kind of starting, I feel like, to feel like Adrian, and she's not as important. But to me, Bianca isn't that important to Creed, but she's still very prevalent in it. And maybe she's not even like Adrian. She's really still there. And the side plot where Creed's daughter's going to become a fighter, that's going to lead to somewhere cool in the sequels where maybe she'll become the next Creed, and they're going to try and spin the franchise that direction. I don't know if they're going to do that, but Creed 3, I thought was great. My favorite Creed movie, and I was super, super happy that this movie was actually good without Sylvester Stallone. So I'm super excited for Creed 4, and I really hope Michael B. Jordan directs it because he is a great director. But Creed 3 is my number 5, and number 4 territory is where these movies become some of my favorite movies of all time. So number 4, I believe I had way lower down in my ranking because this is one that I did not enjoy when I first watched it, and this would have been probably my last. Literally probably below Rocky 5 if I had done this right after I watched all the movies. And that is none other than Rocky 3. So this is one that I see a lot of people either put like, either you are, I feel like you're a giant fan of it or you're not really a fan of it. And I'm a fan of it, I would say, at this point, because I did not like this movie at all when I first watched it. I thought it was so boring and not like the first two or the fourth one. And I've really come around to it because I rewatched it about a year later in 2020, and I was like, oh my god, this movie's great. And then I rewatched it for these reviews, obviously, and I thought that this one was absolutely amazing. The first four are like the perfect quadrilogy of movies almost to me. I don't think that you could go from movie to movie and you would really feel any difference. Maybe if you went, well, Rocky 1 and 2 definitely work together very good, and 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4 work really good together, but all 4 of them work amazing together, and I just absolutely love Rocky 3. In this one, you got the most emotional scene in the whole Rocky franchise to me. Mickey's death is still probably the best directed scene in this whole series, I'm not gonna lie, and I didn't cry the first time I watched it, and I didn't really cry this time, but it was a lot more emotional, even though I knew it was gonna happen. And I think that Sylvester Stallone does such an amazing job directing and acting, obviously, and this movie obviously gives us The Eye of the Tiger, which is one of the best songs ever by Survivor, and I absolutely love that song, and I absolutely love this movie. I think that this is um definitely, I wouldn't say underrated at this point because I feel like it's pretty well loved now, especially by Rocky fans. Everyone puts, if you're a Rocky fan, you definitely put this one higher up. But I think that Mr. T, I can't even remember his character's name, but I remember the actor's name, Mr. T. Clubber Lang, that's his name. Okay, I forgot that. Clubber Lang is probably the best villain in the way of, he's just not pure evil because he's super cheesy and he doesn't seem that dangerous, I'm gonna be honest. But he's the only villain in this entire franchise that is just kind of pure evil. Like, he's got no one, um, like, messing with him or, like, in the head, like Ivan Drago, obviously his wife did, and, didn't end up becoming, like, a friend of Rocky's. I feel like he's the only one that's kind of not even really pure evil, just, has no other motive, but he just hates Rocky. So that's very memorable to me. But I think Clubber Lang's a great villain, and he's probably top three, or yeah, he's definitely the third best behind the other two I mentioned earlier. And yeah, so I love Rocky 3. I'm excited to keep watching it because this is one that I don't think I've watched. Out of some of my favorites, this is definitely the one I haven't watched the most. Out of obviously the next three, but I hope that Rocky 3 will keep growing on me. Who knows, it could move up my ranking easily. But Rocky 3 comes in at number 4. And then number 3 on, or like top, I would say 60 favorite movies of all time territory. If you saw my top 50 favorite montage, you'll see that number 2 and 1 were in there. And I actually was about to have number 3 in there, but then I realized I had to axe it because I had a couple movies I had to put in front of it. But number 3 is changed. I know that because the number 3 and 2 were flopped. Number 3 is Rocky 4. Not the director's cut, just the theatrical cut. I prefer the theatrical cut because I've only seen that director's cut once, and it was great. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think anything will ever beat the theatrical cut. And this was one that is always, I see, people's like favorite sequel of the Rocky movies. Even if they like Creed a lot, I feel like everyone puts Rocky 4 at like second or third place, which to me is kind of shocking looking back now because it has like the worst reviews of them, which really proves reviews aren't the way to go. This one's got like a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. Get out of here. It's definitely not that. To me, this is one of my favorite movies of all time because this one and another one I'll mention were just instant favorites of mine, and I rewatched this one probably the most out of any of the Rocky movies. And even my number 1, I watched my number 3, Rocky 4, the most. And I absolutely love Rocky 4. You get Ivan Drago in here, who I mentioned was my second favorite villain of all time for the Rocky series. And I just absolutely love this movie. Even the 80s cheesiness, I think that Sylvester Stallone gives another amazing performance slash director job for this movie. And I think that this movie's almost flawless. And there's not much I could say that would fix it because there's not really many flaws. I think that maybe one thing is Apollo's death could have been played a little bit better, where it was a little bit more dramatic, like Mickey's death. Mickey's death was played way better, honestly. But I think that this movie is great, and I'm really glad that this is probably, I would say, overall the fan favorite sequel of the Rocky movies. So, Rocky 4 comes in at my number 3. Now we've got the final 2, and the number 2 is probably pretty surprising to people if you don't know me. Number 2 is Rocky 1 from 1976. I think that this movie is absolutely amazing. This would have been third place if I never rewatched them because when I was 9, I couldn't really appreciate maybe the a little bit more boring tone, and I just never really rewatched this movie. I don't think I'd ever rewatched it once, or maybe maybe I rewatched it once ever, but I'd never really rewatched it since I can remember. So there was just a huge gap, and that's what made me want to watch Rocky. Because I was like, I got this soundtrack right here. I was listening to it, and I was like, I don't remember any of the first movie. So I sat down, watched the first one, and then I realized Creed 3 was coming out, so it'd be perfect to just review the whole series. And this was the first ever series I reviewed, so it was great to do it with one of my favorites of all time. And Rocky 1 is a flawless movie. I think that number 2 and 1 are just flawless movies to me because Sylvester Stallone, this is probably his best performance, and this is the one that won Best Picture. This is the one that many people consider the best. I would say probably 8 out of 10 Rocky fans would say that this is their favorite. And I know it's my dad's favorite and a lot of other people's favorite, but I absolutely love it. And this came at like number 36 on my favorite movies of all time because John G. Avildsen is one of the most underrated directors of all time. I think he's great and stuff like The Karate Kid and The Karate Kid 2, even though I haven't really seen that all the way through. The bits I've seen were great. And I think that he does such a great job at directing this movie. And even though I think Sylvester Stallone is the true MVP of this franchise, obviously, because he created the thing, acted in all the movies, not including Creed 3, and wrote, I think, every single one up to Creed 2. And I would like to mention John G. Ellison for writing or for directing this first movie. And yeah, but one thing I'm surprised I haven't mentioned yet, Bill Conti is another underlying hero of this because he gives one of the greatest scores of all time for Rocky. Rocky 2, Rocky 3, and Rocky 5, I think, have some of the greatest scores, especially Rocky 1 and 2. Those are two of my favorite scores of all time. I think the second one's probably a little bit better in my opinion. But I just absolutely love Bill Conti's work. He never gets mentioned, so I always like to mention him when I'm talking about the Rocky movies he scored. But Rocky from 1976 is a flawless movie. It will go on to be a classic forever. I don't think anything will ever make it not a classic. And yeah, but is not my number one. If you've listened, then you understand what my number one is. Rocky 2 has always been my favorite, and it will always be. This is my 11th favorite movie of all time, or 12th. I'm pretty sure I put it at 12th or 11th, because I just love this movie so much, and I always have. Rocky 2 has just always been my favorite. I don't really know why. I think it's because Rocky wins in the end, and seeing that for the first time was just so exciting. And I really like this portion where I completely forgot that Rocky's trying to find a job, and that's like a big portion of the movie. That's like an hour of the movie. So you basically get like Rocky where he's a little bit more popular, and you still get a lot of the first movie, but this was the first one that Sylvester Stallone directed, and my God, this is the greatest thing he's ever directed or acted in my opinion. Even better than like First Blood. I think that Rocky 2 is his best work, and I absolutely love this movie. Like I mentioned, Bill Conti's score is great. Paulie in this one's great. Adrian is amazing in this one, and they're one of the big conflicts of the movie is not boxing at all. It's Rocky trying to make a family, and Adrian goes into a coma after their baby is born, and so right when she wakes up, she says, "Do it," as beat Apollo Creed. And so that's like an amazing moment, and there's some themes from Rocky too that I think the redemption theme that plays over the opening is probably better than Gonna Fly Now, and it's like probably a top, I would say 7 favorite like theme of all time for me. And there's just so much stuff I love about this movie. Go and check out my full Rocky 2 review because I feel like I can't do it justice without talking about it for like an hour long. And I absolutely love Rocky 2. It will always be my favorite, and I don't think they'll ever make a Creed movie better than Rocky 2. And this is shocking to me that this is one of the ones looked at like not as, I feel like this is usually on the bottom like lower half of people's Rocky reviews and or Rocky rankings, and this I've never understood that because this is always going to be one of my favorites, and or it's always going to be my favorite Rocky movie and one of my favorite movies of all time. But thank you guys so much for watching that Rocky ranking. I'm super glad that I did this because I've never done a full like review series before, and I'm gonna do it. I don't know. I'm probably gonna do Indiana Jones when those comes out, but expect some more review series because they were just so much fun to do. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this cool movie ratings video, and I will see you guys later. Bye, guys.